Hey guys, Rich here, full-time realtor in the city of Denver, Colorado. Today I'm going to be telling you guys what you need to know when you're buying a home for the first time in Colorado. So I have 5 tips for you guys, 5 fun facts. Stick around to the end and I will give you guys a bonus tip, what I think is the most important tip out of the 5 that we'll be covering today. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. That way you guys don't miss a beat. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Here we go. Tip number 1, know what you are pre-approved for. Know what your budget is. So when I say that, I don't necessarily mean just what you guys are pre-approved for, but also what you're comfortable on a monthly basis in terms of your budget. Oftentimes, you got good credit, you got a good gig. Oftentimes lenders are going to approve you for the maximum, right? But you want to make sure that you go over those numbers with your lender and your real estate professional to make sure that you guys are comfortable with that monthly payment. Not only the, principal, balance, interest, all that sort of stuff that you pay for the house, but also like things like your utility bills, water, electricity, gas, that sort of thing. So just factor those in, really know your budget, what you guys are comfortable with. You don't want to be house broke. You want to be able to go out and enjoy a nice dinner or, buy some nice things for yourself or for your significant other. You do not want to be house broke. So that is my first and foremost tip. Know what your budget is and know what you are comfortable with on a monthly basis. Tip number 2. Here in Colorado, we do have elevated levels of radon. Now, what radon is don't freak out, it's a cancerous causing gas that usually permeates through your basement, concrete, walls, foundations, slab. We have a lot of decomposing rock and decomposing granites and that sort of stuff here in Colorado. Naturally, we're a mile above sea level, right at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. So as you can imagine, when all of these rocks and minerals start decomposing, they release gases. And so these gases permeate through your foundational walls in your either basement, crawl space, or slab, releasing this gas that's called radon. It is cancerous. The EPA does have recommended levels to keep that below. So get that tested when you are in your inspection period and under contract on your home. It's about $150 to get it tested. It's a 48-hour test. The monitor will actually show you the spikes and a full-blown graph of all of the levels of the radon. So it'll give you like an average. It'll also give you the highest level, the lowest level, so on and so forth. But for $150, you'll know exactly what's going on in your basement, crawl space, slab, and you will either be able to ask the seller to mitigate that for you, or depending on the obligations of your contract, you'll know that you need to mitigate it yourself. Usually a mitigation system costs anywhere between $800 to $1,000. So definitely $150 is well worth it in my eyes to know what's going on in your crawl or in your basement, and not to put yourself or your loved ones in the home at risk. Let's jump into tip number 3. Here in the Mile High City, we have a lot of expansive soils. And while that doesn't sound too treacherous, these expansive soils can cause foundation settling and structural issues with homes. I'd say a lot of, the majority of the homes are fine. They don't have too many structural issues, but there are certain pockets here in the Front Range, specifically particular Denver, that do have more of these issues and more settling. The soils are consistently contracting and expanding. And so this sometimes causes structural issues with the home. Keep an eye out for it. Obviously, if you have a good inspector inspecting the home, they'll usually be able to point out issues that they might recommend for a structural engineer to further evaluate. Some things that you can keep an eye out for when just walking through the property with your realtor by yourself is huge major cracks in the foundational walls if the basement is unfinished. From the outside, you can usually take a look at the structural integrity of the foundational walls to see if there's any kind of cracks. front fascia of the house, if it's brick, if there's, giant cracks going through the brick or anything like that. Inside, if everything's kind of finished, you can look at the walls, the ceilings to see if there's any kind of crazy bowing in the walls, if any walls are out of whack, or if the ceiling is drooping, just major things like that. Again, your inspector will be able to point those out if he feels that there's a issue and that something needs to be further evaluated by a structural engineer. Tip number 4, we get bad hailstorms here in Denver. It's not a constant, consistent thing, but sometimes when we do get hit hard. So 2 things to keep in mind. The first with that is if you love your cars, trucks, and toys like I do, it may be wise to look for a property with a garage to shield those toys and cars and trucks away from that hail. Insurance is usually pretty good about protecting you and helping you out with any kind of hail damage. But again, if that is important to you, look for a place with a garage because we do get bad hailstorms here. The second part to that is, we might get a bad hailstorm and you should properly inspect your roof. So again, a good home inspector is going to walk the roof, is going to check the roof from the inside of the attic to make sure that there's no structural issues or any leaking that may cause concern either immediately or down the line. Usually insurance companies are also pretty good since we do get a lot of hail here. They're usually pretty good about, getting you a new roof and making sure that it's covered under your claim. So that's tip number 4. Let's jump into tip number 5, right? Variations in property taxes. Wherever you guys are coming from, you may be dealing with different property taxes. I myself came from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And so our property taxes in Illinois are absolutely atrocious, hence the enormous exodus from Illinois, that amongst other things. But the property taxes here in Denver are relatively reasonable. What I want to get into though is on a new build or a new construction, your taxes are going to be substantially higher. Usually with new builds, you're anywhere between 1.1 and 1.3% in property taxes, as opposed to 0.7, 0.8 on a resale home. That can make a big difference in your monthly budget. So this kind of ties back into my first tip, knowing your budget. And really knowing what you're pre-approved for and how that tax rate may or may not affect your monthly budget. Again, new construction, there's pros and there's cons. A new build, you're gonna get like a 7-year structural warranty from most builders and their product. I'm gonna do another segment down the line here all about new construction and really dive deep. But the number one thing that I want you guys to take away from this 5th tip is the property taxes. They are higher on newer builds. Some lie within metro districts as well, and that's another topic that I'd love to get into further down the line in my new home construction segment. What tip I think is the most important out of these 5? I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, is number 1, knowing your budget. Nobody wants to be house broke. Nobody wants to be, stretched beyond their means. Just because a lender is going to approve you for, $500,000, doesn't mean you have to spend that entire $500,000. Now, we are in an extremely competitive market, and so oftentimes you are going to pay over list price. But again, knowing your budget, knowing what your monthly payment's going to be with your utilities, your mortgage, your taxes, all that stuff, and HOA if it's applicable, just knowing what your budget is and kind of sticking to that, having a good range and really communicating that with not only your realtor, but also your mortgage professional. That's what they're there for, guys. They're there to run numbers, let you know what you're going to be paying a month, give you a killer rate because rates are absolutely phenomenal right now at historical lows. But knowing your budget, I think that is the number 1 thing that I'd like for you guys to take away from all of this, from the 5 tips to buying a home for the first time in Colorado. My name is Rich, and I'm a full-time real estate broker here in the beautiful state of Colorado. All of my personal information is in the description below. It would mean the absolute world to me if you like, shared, and subscribed to my channel. If you enjoyed and found value in this video, click on these boxes up here to explore more of my content. This is Realty Rich, and I will check you guys out on the next video.